Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Category Visionaries. Today we're speaking with Nilo Rahmani, CEO and co-founder of Thoras. Nilo, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm really excited for this conversation. I've talked with a lot of founders, but I think you're the first founders that I've had on that your co-founder is your sister. So before we jump into everything, talk to us about that. What's that like having your sister as a co-founder?
It's incredible because there's no walking on eggshells. We can kind of just get right into it. We spent the first few years of our lives getting all of our fights out. And naturally, as any pair of twins will do, we grew up very close, and then we didn't really seek out starting a business together. That was never something that we ever discussed, if I'm being perfectly honest. But we did work in the same field for 10 years. So we naturally would exchange qualms with each other. We would kind of complain about how reactive our jobs are, especially when you're on call for a decade and having to wake up and deal with alerts, and just knowing there was a better way, especially around kind of the reliability industry. So it was, not something that we just planned to do. It was something we stumbled upon.
And what was the trigger? What was the big aha for you to say, okay, that's it. We've been very close our whole lives. Let's get a little bit closer and start a company together.
Once we reached seniority, we definitely developed a lot more confidence in sort of our abilities to make decisions as engineers. And that's when it was obvious that we're lacking the right tooling. For me, my aha moment was when I was working on my master's at Georgia Tech. I focused on interactive intelligence and machine learning. And it was wait, every other industry already uses machine learning. Why isn't the reliability industry using it? So that was my aha moment. And then, naturally, both of us would, again, just complain over the years. And ultimately, what led us to quitting our jobs, I think, was, seeing how there was starting to be this rapid adoption of AI technology versus I did try to pitch a similar platform to internal teams that I was working with in the corporate world, but nobody would really bite. But then again, timing is everything when it comes to a startup success. So we realized, people are going to start adopting AI technology. Let's do this.
What did the first, let's say, 6 months look like?
So prior to us, structuring the company, we just did a lot of talking. I think every engineer's first instinct, and it was mine as well. I remember putting my kid to sleep and then staying up till 2, 3 a.m. trying to get an MVP done. And then somebody in the Bay Area actually gave me the best advice. They're stop coding and start talking. And that's exactly what we did. We started just really kind of taking a tour around the country. We went all over and started talking to different customers about sort of what the pain points they were experiencing around Kubernetes and workload management. So just a lot of talking to folks. And the more that we had those conversations, the more it became so glaringly obvious that we have to quit. We have to structure a company. We have to go for it.
How did you approach having those conversations? And how did you make sure that you're not asking leading questions so they just validate the problem that you're solving? And how did you make those really useful and impactful?
We didn't go in with the sales pitch initially. It was more hey, not going right for the sales pitch worked for us personally. So just reaching out to folks. And it wasn't even folks in our network. So a lot of people sell to family and friends at first. To this day, we haven't done that at all. Every customer, every adopter of Thoras has been pure organic outreach. And that's really what we wanted to validate within ourselves, that no one's doing us a favor by telling us what we need. They truly need this. So yeah, just having conversations, going up to engineering leaders and saying hey, can I get your feedback on something that I want to work on? And then they would kind of tell me, I would love for a platform to do X, Y, and Z for me. So it just naturally became very sort of obvious what the commonalities with all those conversations were. We had dozens and dozens of conversations like that.
And what was the early go-to-market strategy? Tell us about that. Then, of course, let's talk about the evolution to what it's evolved to today.
I always like to say that we have never really been in search for product market fit because we sat in the seat of the people that were helping, the reliability teams. The one thing that I am learning is that, and again, it's not really learning, it's something that we're also maybe experimenting with is, the reliability industry has so many different failure points, right? Every week is so different for a reliability engineer. And I think that's actually one of the strengths of the platform is like, you don't have to worry about scale anymore. You can go figure out the rest of the tech stack, like automation and, responding to alerts, all of that. And that's what I always sort of tell folks in the industry is when you're looking at AI tools, there's a lot of tools kind of right now trying to sell everything at once, like the autonomous SRE agents that are going to do everything for you. When in reality, it's definitely going to be a more incremental approach to AI. So like looking for the tools that can start making some of those failure modes less likely, or just like your everyday life a little bit easier as a reliability engineer. But yeah, we've always known from day one that we're going to sell into sort of engineering teams. So we talk to like their leaders, sometimes the VP of engineering, like sometimes the director, sometimes the CTO, right? Because their job is maintain cloud costs, keep our applications alive. So we've been doing that pretty much since day one, and it's been working great.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode. How do you acquire customers right now? What channels are working, and what have you tried that's not working?
We do a lot of cold outbound. People like to hear that something is going to optimize performance and also bring down costs. Like I always say, it's irresponsible not to take a call, given those are two strong value propositions. But what's been working is, more or less still getting feedback from engineering leaders, even though it's definitely more of a sales pitch now, but getting their feedback is always really helpful. People love to talk about engineering problems. I know I did back when I was working as an SRE. So that's been working really great. We've also been doing a lot of sort of warm introductions through our investors. We have a lot more in our cap table now. And so like utilizing their networks, we get in, a ton of inbound as well. We've done a lot of work to revamp our branding and our online presence. Sometimes, it'll be like, I heard you on a podcast and I really want to try out the tool, which is so neat to see. What's not really been working, I would say email like automation is something that I once tried. And I think you pretty much just go to spam or you just get blocked entirely from like Gmail's filters. So I think that is something, in my opinion, is like not worth the founder's time anymore.
Let's talk about the brand. You touched on it there. I don't say this normally with like B2B tech products, but it's a beautiful brand. Like it looks cool. Like it looks almost more like a consumer brand than a B2B technology product. So I'm guessing that wasn't on accident. Talk to us about the thinking behind the brand.
I love that you picked up on that, Brett, because that was the exact intention. Like every single tool that I've seen over the past few years, not to knock anyone specifically, but it's always been really the same generic, like even down to like the color palette, like the bright colors. And, it just kind of got old and it felt like we were going to get sort of categorized in like this whole large sea of different tools that are coming out every single day. So we wanted something not only that would stand out, but would make the, professionals in our industry feel like they're elevating not only their role, but, their entire team by using a brand that really truly understands their pain points and doesn't just add marketing fluff to sound, really cool. So that's kind of the intention behind our brand. We're very intentional with our language and, not making it a lot fluffier than it needs to be.
I'm sure that's one way that you stood out. What else have you done to stand out and rise above just all of the noise and chaos that's out there in the market?
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of branding around cutting cloud costs. And so when you're trying to increase workload efficiency, or in our case, workload utilization, you naturally bring down costs. But everybody has been coming at this category at a pure FinOps cost savings angle. For me personally, as a reliability professional, I always want a tool to prioritize the reliability and integrity of my application. Cost savings is always secondary. Again, it really kind of sometimes depends on like who you ask. But for the reliability engineer, if there's any attention on us because of an outage, that's bad attention. I always say it's a very thankless industry. When things are running, no one's thinking about us. That's a great thing for us. So I personally wouldn't buy a tool that's managing my capacity and is incentivized to bring my capacity down. I want to make sure for like, big business events that I have enough capacity, though you don't need to completely over provision resources in the cloud anymore either, because we have machine learning at our disposal. And so that's the intent behind our moat and our differentiator.
And what do you think about category, or how are you thinking about category? Is this, transforming an existing category? Is it a category creation play, TPD? How are you thinking about it?
I think we're discovering a new category. Previously, everything that the reliability engineer would touch or even developers sometimes to understand applications was always under the observability umbrella. But now with the rise of AI, we're starting to see new categories come about that were always needs. We're not just creating categories just to create them. They were always needs. But I think, in our case, we're creating a category for optimization and efficiency and helping automate things that the reliability engineer shouldn't have to worry about on their own or manually fine tune.
Do you view, the analyst firms like Gartner and Forrester as mission critical to that category creation play, or is that irrelevant and you can create that category without them?
I think if I can be frank, they're still figuring it out themselves. Like you'll see different sort of grids for, I've heard AI ops. Yeah, I've heard like a ton of different labels for that. So I think they're still figuring it out. A lot of times they'll categorize a tool like ours very much in like the, cost optimization or FinOps space. But I very much believe that we are, creating our own category of increasing workload efficiency through the use of AI ML. So whatever flavor of sort of label you want to put on it, but the one thing that we don't like to identify as is a pure FinOps or a cost savings tool.
This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Co., a marketing leader's best friend in these times of budget cuts and efficient growth. We help marketing leaders find, hire, vet, and manage amazing marketing talent for 50 to 70% less than their US and European counterparts. To book a free consultation, visit globaltalent.co.
When you reflect on this entire go-to-market journey so far, what would you say has been the biggest lesson learned or the biggest change that you've made that really had an impact?
If you saw our first website, it was as startup-y as one could get. It literally was just like a random landing page. I put it up myself and I've learned so much. I've learned that less is more with messaging, the more succinct that you can be and not confuse your user or prospect, the better. So like really trying to understand language market fit is something that we've learned a lot about over the last couple of years.
What about fundraising? So you've raised 6.5 million to date. What have you learned about fundraising throughout this journey?
Fundraising is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. And I have a degree in electrical engineering and computer science, 2 degrees. And so despite that, I think fundraising probably is right on top of that, if not maybe a little bit more. When I started to do this, it was like right after like venture capital changed, like literally that same year. And so, it was the amount of no's that I got where I started to get numb to it. I must have received like hundreds of no's. And I know that's every founder's initial story, but I genuinely think that the timing of the market, it was like the worst time. Ultimately, what really kind of pushed things was having as many customers ready to use your platform that I think naturally increased my confidence to go out and pitch, and also quitting my job. Like I feel like founders who are trying to moonlight, I know not everyone can do that, but for me, things got really serious when this had my like full, unwavering attention.
Did it feel like you were like burning the ships when you left the corporate world, or did like you have in the back of your head, like I can always just go back and do this again?
I didn't see going back as an option at the time. I just had so much adrenaline that I think like knowing how much money I had left in the bank to survive was what I personally needed. I guess in the back of my mind, always the option of like, I could go back, but I would see that I think there's a lot more that I would have to do and a lot more failure I'd have to face before ever considering that.
Final question for you. Let's zoom out 3 years, maybe we can go 5 years, into the future. What's the big picture vision look like?
The big picture, our predictive scaling platform today has very much always been a wedge. Again, you're seeing a lot of companies right now who are trying to sell that 3 to 5 year vision, which is great. Maybe that's what, they deem as the right way. But for me personally, I think that can be intimidating to a lot of people, especially in the reliability industry. Like I always say, for any infrastructure professional to adopt an AI tool, there's a lot more at stake than like, a developer just adopting a tool to make code written faster or to write tests, right? Like those are easy wins for the engineering industry. But with infrastructure, again, it's highly nuanced. Every tech stack is different. So there's going to be a little bit more discovery, in my opinion, before we get to that 3 to 5 year vision where you can kind of let AI do its thing and manage infrastructure. So predictive scaling to us is sort of a wedge and helping people understand, a very powerful one, I might say, but it's a wedge for people to start adopting AI ML technology without worrying about the integrity of their application or losing complete control. In 3 to 5 years, we would also like to expand beyond just predictive scaling. So, identifying root cause, relationships between services, How do we, resolve issues? What people don't talk about right now is how do we prevent issues from happening in the first place? There's a lot of, autonomous on-call engineers, but what if there was a world where you could prevent the issue to begin with? Like before you push something to production, there's going to be a breaking change because you were able to simulate that issue. So I think that's kind of the goal, is to expand on our AI capabilities at the right time when people are actually ready to adopt it.
Amazing. I love the vision. I love this conversation. It's been a lot of fun, especially the focus on brand. Like I said, awesome brand. So excited to see how far that takes you. Before we wrap, if there's anyone listening in that just wants to follow along with you, where should we send them?
Send them to our website. We definitely want everyone to kind of take a look at what we've been up to. So Thoras.ai, you can book a demo, you can hear from me. Sometimes I take those calls as well. I'm on LinkedIn as well under /Nilo-DevOps. I'm on Instagram and Twitter @SheDevOps, but look forward to connecting with everyone.
Amazing. Thank you for taking the time. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Brett.
This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.